so we're going to take a look at the last two endocrine organs, and then, like I said, we'll move on to taking a look at some of the cardiovascular, especially just kind of taking a look at arteries versus veins, type of look like that. So the last two organs that we're going to look at are going to be the adrenal gland and outside the adrenal gland, the pancreas. So the adrenal, to me, is kind of one of these tougher ones in that it's almost 4 glands in one in terms of layers and the different hormones it makes. See, the adrenal glands are these little organs that are sometimes called suprarenal glands. They sit on the top of the kidneys, kind of like a little Robin Hood hat sitting on top of the kidneys. We're going to see that there's really 2 main layers to these. You have the adrenal cortex, which is the outer part of this. It makes a few different steroid hormones, things called mineralocorticoids, glucocorticoids, and a small amount of sex steroids. Minimal compared to the gonads, but they are there. Every once in a while, somebody can have an adrenal tumor that can cause a pretty high output of these, for example. The adrenal medulla is on the interior of this. It makes what is called epinephrine and norepinephrine, sometimes also thought of as adrenaline. And again, part of that fight or flight response can increase the heart rate, increase breathing rate, things along those lines, give you that adrenaline rush. So you can kind of see here the 2 main layers. You can see the cortex with the black line there showing you the different layers of that. You can see there is some distinct differences in those layers that we will take a look at as we go through this. There is really kind of these 3 distinct zones to the cortex, and then those are actually somewhat distinct from the medulla. In this image as well, you can actually see a blood vessel if you take a look at it right there with all the blood cells in it too. Really, if we're looking at this, it kind of goes a dark, light, dark type of layering on here. And these outer layers they call zona. So the outermost one is called the Zona Glomerulosa. Comes from glomerula. And it's really because they have these little sphere-like clusters. Main thing of these ones, these are going to produce mineralocorticoids, things like aldosterone. Aldosterone is involved in sodium retention along with kind of responding to something called angiotensin II, involved in blood pressure regulation. But the biggest thing here, increased aldosterone secretion is going to cause you to reabsorb more sodium from your urine filtrate, which is going to lead to increased water reabsorption at your kidneys. If we look at this one here, it is this outermost layer, generally a little bit darker we'll see than the middle layer, but they have these little circular clusters of cells in this glomerulosa. And we'll take a look at all these on the side. This is, to me, probably not the best staining one. This layer is usually slightly darker on the outside. It kind of goes light, dark, light. dark, light, dark. The Zona Fasciculata is this middle layer, dealing with glucocorticoids. The main one is cortisol, kind of a stress hormone, deals with energy regulation and mobilization of glucose, things like that. This is the one that is really regulated by the ACTH. You get that adrenocorticotropic hormone being released. It's going to cause cortisol to be synthesized and released. And like I said, that's carbohydrate, fat, protein metabolism, increases blood glucose levels. Long-term expressing of this can lead to immune issues, can honestly lead to kind of a stress failure response type of thing. And the innermost layer is the Zona Reticularis. Regular network is where it gets it from in terms of reticulum. And this one is, like I said, mainly making androgens, things like testosterone, but again, at small levels compared to what the gonads would be making. And if we look at these layers right here, you can see the fasciculata. They have these kind of more clear cells, not like large non-staining vesicles in it. And then you have the reticularis, which stains much darker in color as it's approaching that medulla. Like I said, the adrenal medulla has what are called chromaffin cells and some ganglia from the sympathetic nervous system. These chromaffin cells make what are called epinephrine and a little bit of norepinephrine. And again, these are these fight or flight hormones. They're used as neurotransmitters in the sympathetic nervous system. We can also dump these through the adrenal medulla directly into the bloodstream and trigger a systemic fight or flight response, which again, fight or flight, it makes sense that you'd want to trigger breathing, heart rate, all that stuff at once. And you can kind of see the ganglion cells and the chromaffin cells. To me, just need to know the medulla. I'm probably not going to differentiate between those two for anybody on this one. And again, you can kind of see it when you see it in this one here. You can see the zona glomerulosa is this upper part, like I said, a little bit darker, circular globs of cells. The fasciculata is a little bit more columns. Again, not a lot of stain taking up in that cytoplasm. Where the reticularis, we're going to see, takes up a lot more of that eosin stain, much darker pink staining on the interior there. Where the medulla, again, is going to look completely distinct versus any of those other three layers. Again, knowing what the layer is and knowing what the layer makes is, to me, kind of the big ideas that you need to be doing on this one. And again, you can see, again, the picture here on the different ones here, a little bit more of a cartoon version in terms of what's going on and what they're making. And the way to think about this is those ideas right there. Outer one here is the salt, sugar, and sex hormones. So the other one we're going to take a look at is the pancreas, and we're going to see, we'll actually look at the pancreas again when we do the digestive tract. Pancreas is kind of an interesting organ in that it is both an endocrine organ and an exocrine organ. Digestively, it's exocrine. A little bit with our blood sugar regulation, we're going to see there is these endocrine structures within the pancreas that are involved in either upregulating or downregulating blood glucose levels. These ones are called the islet cells on these ones here. And again, we'll talk about the exocrine on the pancreas and the liver and with those things in the digestive organs. Main thing here, the endocrine gland of this makes the two main hormones, glucagon and insulin, that are going to be playing a big role in blood glucose levels. If we're looking at this, you can see this pancreas here is mainly these glandular structures, these a lot of times what we call acini, these little circular structures that are around a duct. You can see there is on this picture kind of these three distinct structures that look a little bit different. These are these islet cells, so almost like little islands in the gland here that these are separate. These are going to be those cells that are making the insulin and glucagon along with the other couple of hormones that are in there. Again, slightly, to me, a little bit more disorganized, a little bit more irregular. Kind of looks like a little piece of chewed gum got stuck into this gland in terms of how it looks a little bit more swirled and different. Again, you can see it, a little bit lighter staining cytoplasm on these ones. There is some different cells in there. We're not going to differentiate the cells when we look at this, but the alpha cells, these are the ones that make glucagon, which is going to increase blood glucose levels when they get low. We also have the beta cells, which are going to make insulin, and these release insulin when blood glucose levels get high, so the cells take up that glucose and drop the blood glucose levels. Again, easily the most numerous. These are, if you're type 1 diabetic, these a lot of times are the cells that were attacked and killed by an autoimmune disorder that leads to that type 1 diabetes, the inability to make insulin. And you can see this one actually stained for the insulin on these ones, those cells that are making that. Again, we're not going to be looking at this type of staining. We're not going to be going for that. You just need to be able to identify the islets and that it is the pancreas. There is these delta cells. They make somatostatin, which is going to inhibit the release of both of those. And there's also the F cells that release pancreatic polypeptide, which inhibits the release of certain digestive enzymes. Again, I'm not so worried about the D and F cells. Know what's going on with the glucagon and the insulin. See, overall here we're looking at an adrenal gland. Just to kind of show you before I zoom in on the layers to get this a little bit more, but you can definitely see that there's three distinct layers and then an interior. So this would kind of be the dividing line between the medulla and the cortex. And you can see your three main layers right here, the glomerulosa, fasciculata, and then reticularis right here, and then the medulla would be in this interior. So if we kind of now zoom in on this a little bit, we can see these a little bit more distinctly. And again, if you're looking at the outside part here, again, you can see glomerulosa on this outer part here, fasciculata through the interior, and then that reticularis as it darkens back up again. And that's what I was kind of saying before. You get this light, dark, light. And then finally, if we look in here, you can see this dividing line right about there is differentiating the cortex from the medulla. So the other slide that we're going to take a look at is the pancreas. So this is the pancreas. Again, on the pancreas, there is a distinct areas that we're looking for. Most of the pancreas is digestive in function, but if we do zoom in on this, you can kind of start seeing some of these distinct structures. So right here, that would be a pancreatic islet or an islet of Langerhans, probably another one right here. We could try to scan around a little bit more and look to see if we've, probably another one right there. Again, as you move around in here, you'll see these kind of distinct differential kind of looking areas. Another one right there.